No, the floor drops away. I just go into a tuck and roll, and the most dangerous part of the stunt is getting out of the way of the Gamorrean guard that falls on top of me because he weighs about 200 pounds.
That's played by me.
Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. I'm Ralph.
I'm James.
And today we're talking about From Star Wars to Jedi, the making of a saga.
Yes, from 1983, I believe.
1983.
So 4 years before I was born.
Right. And you'd never seen this, right?
I hadn't. I'd never seen the whole thing. Like I think I'd seen some of the interview clips. But yeah, never the whole thing.
Right. This I got in 1990. And it came in the collector's version, the VHS box set. This is the first time I've ever learned of letterbox.
Oh wow, okay.
I was at a store called The Good Guys. That was the name of the store. And they had an audio section. This like audio section where you go in, they have one TV, and then they had like all the speakers set up in a room so you can hear what the different speakers sounded like.
Yep.
So me and my dad go in, and they're like, "What do you want to put on? We could put on anything." And I saw this box set, and I was like, "Holy like put on Star Wars!" Like this is like 1990.
Yeah.
Put on Star Wars, and there's a black bar on the top and bottom, and instead of being like, "Why are those black bars on the top and bottom?" I'm like, "Oh, Tatooine has a third moon?"
There's
like what?
There's stuff that I'd never seen. Wow.
Yeah. And so for Easter, I ended up getting this box set which came with From Star Wars to Jedi, Making of a Saga.
So looking at the cover there of that, is that the origins of that photo? Because I've seen that photo. That's an iconic picture of George, like in the workshop sort of thing.
Yeah, and he's kind of in the background right now.
Yeah,
looking at us. I kind of darkened it a little bit so he wasn't just looming over us.
I mean, he's looming over all of us, isn't he? That's kind of what George is. But yeah,
it's this picture of him in the like ILM creature shop, surrounded by everything. And his outfit's a little frumpy.
He also looks like kind of pissed off to be there.
It's like someone set him up as a prop.
Yeah. It's the most George Lucas photo there could be.
Right.
Where he's like, he is happy, but he's not going to let you know that he's happy.
Right. Dude, so how did you go this long without seeing it?
I had no idea. I thought I'd seen all of them. I think I've just seen it so many making of documentaries over the years that whenever this one popped up, I was like, oh, I've seen stuff that's just reused enough of that footage. And I think that must be what it is.
So when you watched the full thing, did you get like way more out of it? Or was it boring?
No, it wasn't boring at all. I really enjoyed watching it. There was nothing I learned from this about the making of Star Wars that I didn't already know.
Right.
We've all read like every book under the sun. We've all like the Rinsler books. We've got those. We've seen the documentaries.
Did you know about the English version of La Pinec?
I think I knew that that's how they did some of the music, but I'd never heard it. But yeah, hearing the English vocals on Lop Mek was just like, oh, okay, that's the lyrics, as it were now. Right. And I didn't know that Slice Noodles was originally just a dancer.
Right.
That they decided, you know what, let's have a vocalist. Let's go with the one who's got the big long mouth. And they had to go back in and like animate the mouth, like not go back in, but like while they were developing the animatronic.
Right. That's the fun thing about this documentary is seeing them making the decisions.
Yeah.
That
there's a lot of that
are like legendary now.
Yeah. And it's also interesting hearing George in like that one sort of sit down interview that he obviously did for this documentary. Right. There's a lot of contradictions between what he says in 1983 for this documentary and George of, say, like the mid 2000s when the prequels were coming out.
Right. There's
Like
also
he fully admits that like it wasn't all planned out. Like he had to make things up, not make things up on the fly, but like he had to make decisions on how the story was going to go on the fly.
a couple of times he mentioned evolving, the script evolving, the characters evolving,
which I think is so much more of an honest answer.
Right.
Because we all know that it did. We all know that it does. But it's like, no, George, you didn't have 6 or 9 films planned out from the start. Don't bullshit us. Like,
yeah,
it was a movie that you had a grander idea for. You made one movie. It was super successful. You got to make more. So you evolved the story based on that.
Right.
And I thought that was...
It seemed like he thought he only had one shot at this.
Yeah.
Put what he wanted in. Obviously, the Death Star 1 was supposed to be in a later movie.
Or looming throughout sort of thing.
But he kind of had one shot at this, and so he's like, okay, I'm going to kill Ben off. And he mentions that. He mentions that Obi-Wan Kenobi was supposed to train Luke on Dagobah or train him more.
He had to create Yoda because he'd already killed off Ben.
Right.
So, like, Yoda wasn't there from the start. Yoda wasn't a planned thing. Like, maybe Ben had a master that he referenced or something, but it wasn't Yoda. It wasn't a little green Yoda. Like, that was a complete creation.
And the story of Yoda, them not knowing if Yoda would work, even when they were filming it.
Yeah. Like, he's like, this looks good,
scary.
but... Yeah, it looks good on set, but we don't know how it will translate to film and to the audience. Like, you look at it now, and it's like, it was a big swing. And, I mean, that's what works. But it was a massive swing that could have fallen flat. And if Yoda doesn't work in Empire Strikes Back doesn't work.
Right. Is there any movie since this, excluding Star Wars, that has decided to make one of their main characters a puppet? Like, I feel like it's still not a thing that, unless it's a comedy, something like Ted. But for the most part, like, it's a pretty ballsy move. And especially when you have, I know he wanted, or what I heard he wanted was Jim Henson to do it. He wanted Jim Henson to be Yoda.
Yeah, I mean,
but Jim Henson at the time was working on The Muppet Show, Great Muppet Caper, and like Dark Crystal all came around the same time, like between 80 and 82. He was working on those things, so he kind of
got the number 2 guy, as it were.
Right, and his voice is so identified with Miss Piggy and Fozzie that it's like that's crazy.
Everyone's gonna know that it's Frank Oz kind of thing, but it's
especially the way that Yoda comes out swinging.
Yeah. I mean, like, Yoda in Empire is just the best. Like, that is the best Yoda, obviously.
Right.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Like, it's so synonymous with us now that we don't even think about it. I don't think about it. I'm just like, yeah, that's Yoda. And I was introduced to Star Wars at such a young age that I've never not had Star Wars in my life.
Right.
I don't remember a time before Star Wars.
Would you want a memory wipe? Let's say you get your memory wiped of not all Star Wars, but let's say all Star Wars, and then you go back and watch it now. Would you hate it?
No, I don't think I'd hate it.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's the same thing. Like, I say this about so many aspects of my life. I'm like, it literally has formed who I am.
Yeah.
Like, growing up with Star Wars is just as fundamental to me as growing up with my brother and my sister. Like, or like the stuff that has happened to me throughout my life. Like, it is on that scale of important to me. So I don't know. Like, I don't like me. If I was exactly the same as me, but I had never seen Star Wars, I'd love it. I think I would love it.
All right.
But I don't know if I am like that because I've grown up like watching Star Wars for 34 years.
Yeah. I think it's funny that us Star Wars kids, when we see like J.J. Abrams doing The Force Awakens, how we're like, oh, he's doing practical. We get so excited because they're doing practical. Which is funny because Yoda, who was always practical growing up, and then he went into CG, but he looked better. Episode 1 definitely. I'm glad they switched it back to CG.
I am definitely.
But it's funny that you don't see, other than Star Wars, main characters that are puppets. I'm sure people leave comments, let us know, because I kind of am curious. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I think
But
there's
just
gotta
like
be.
putting a puppet in a like a big budget serious movie.
And yeah, not. I mean, he is obviously he's comedic. He's funny as hell
Right.
in Empire, but it's not a comedy. It's not a comedy role even. Like
Right.
he's funny, but it's not played for laughs throughout. Like
Right.
when he has to turn it on, like when he's like, I can't train him. Like as
Yeah.
soon as he basically becomes the wise old wizard, it's like, oh, you buy it. You don't just go, oh well, what's this stupid puppet doing? Like, yeah,
Right. I think John Williams has a lot to
always.
like. I think
with every aspect of Star Wars, John Williams has so much of an importance over it.
like the music when Yoda's. I mean, this probably should be saved for Empire Strikes Back conversation, but
We'll get there.
when Yoda lifts the X-wing out of the swamp, you believe it.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's obviously due to the puppeteering. It's done so well, like the closed eyes, the opening the eyes slowly and then taking the big exhale, like it's amazing.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know,
it's just there's no flash to it either. Like with the way that he's moving, it's all
I mean,
you buy it because he's not doing like some wizard stuff like Harry
Right.
Potter or something, or throwing up a spell or whatever. Like it's just the raise of the hand.
it's crazy. You have Ryan Johnson and J.J. Abrams and Gareth Edwards, all these guys taking big swings on certain things. Even George Lucas in the prequels taking big swings on things, and just fans will rip it apart.
Exactly.
and then
Some
for
of them,
Yoda
some
to
of
work.
them hit, some of them miss, and
Yeah.
I feel like George missed. Obviously, George missed with some of the prequel stuff, but like.
Mhm.
That's why I can't rip these guys apart for taking those swings, because they
Right.
are just following that same pattern that was laid out right from the start. It's like you have to take a big swing.
There's a great line in this documentary. It's towards the end where Lucas is discussing taking off the helmet of Vader.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's what I had in mind. It's the whole point of the story, whether
He
there's a
debated
guy
not
under
doing
there or
it.
not. Yeah. And he says it's the story he liked, the story he wanted to tell. And he says, if the public can't deal with it, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like that is, that right there, it should be the title of his book, like biography.
right. Oh my
'Cause-
gosh.
I mean, he made all those choices in the 70s and 80s, and the public did buy it. And I
Right.
think we looked through it through rose-tinted glasses as well, because obviously there was no internet. And I'm sure that there was a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people don't like Return of the Jedi, but like, I think now, if those movies came out today with the way that people are, I think that a lot of the decisions, I think Empire would get the same treatment that The Last Jedi does, where a lot of people would be like, oh, you betrayed the heart of the story, like blah, 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 blah. And I think the Jedi would get, yeah.
I grew up with Empire being my least favorite.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it would have been mine, but there was the rarefied air of Empire for me, because we had them taped off the TV.
Yeah.
And I had Star Wars and I had Return of the Jedi, but our copy of Empire Strikes Back broke up, like the VHS tapes do, sort of thing, and got all crackly and was unwatchable from the moment Ghost Ben appeared to Luke on Hoth.
Oh, okay.
So super early on.
Yeah.
And like you could
Like
struggle
15
through,
minutes in.
yeah, if that. Like you could struggle through the next sort of 5 minutes. So I think you could get to like the back to tank and stuff like that, but that's about all. And then it was just fuzz. So for me, it was like rarefied air. Like if it would come on, I'd be like, I'm watching this, and like quick try and get a tape in and to hit record. And then ended up like that was the first one I owned in a proper copy of.
Right.
Which I think was a birthday present from my brother or something.
Yeah. Still to this day, I think that the Emperor, Luke, and Vader is my favorite all-time Star Wars.
That's great.
Like all that whole sequence. Because I just love Luke Skywalker. What's funny is you mentioned the back to tank scene,
Yep.
and we all know that's the scene where Princess Leia kisses Luke real hard
Oh yeah.
on the lips.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing with the evolving script idea. He does mention it. He doesn't flat out say it, but he makes
It's
it
close.
sound like the whole Leia thing was sort of set up and created for this movie.
Yeah. There was a sister, and there was Leia,
Yeah.
but the two weren't necessarily the same character.
Right.
Until like by the sounds of it, quite a long way through development of the script of Jedi.
Yeah. Right.
This documentary, I wanted to mention it as we're talking about Jedi quite a bit. It features Return of the Jedi a lot.
Right.
It makes sense because of the time frame that it came out.
Mhm.
There'd probably been a bunch of specials about Star Wars and Empire. This is like the first big long documentary after Jedi, so of course they're going to cover everything. Talk
Right.
about the evolution of the story.
Also, they probably had more behind the scenes cameras for
Of
Jedi
course,
than
yeah, they would have done.
the other
Yeah.
films.
Yeah, it seems like CBS probably had access throughout a lot of the production because they knew that they were going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you and I both said it just before. More than anything, this documentary made me want to watch Jedi.
Yeah, exactly.
The narration, Mark Hamill narrating it, which was a real pleasant surprise as soon as it started. I was like, oh crap, I didn't realize that Mark Hamill narrated
Yeah,
this.
it's great.
And it's great hearing that Mark Hamill voice where he's still Luke Skywalker, he's still young Luke Skywalker. It's not the amazing gravelly Mark Hamill that we know now.
Yeah, it's
brilliant.
In the narration, he refers to the pig guards.
That's George. I think George talks about the pig guards a lot.
But Mark Hamill definitely says pig guards.
Oh, okay.
While they're carrying the creature head. In the behind the scenes footage, he calls it a Gamorrean guard.
Yeah, him and Carrie are laying on Jabba.
Yeah.
Talking about the stunt that he does where he like drops and rolls and everything. And it's in that scene that you can see that Mark Hamill is a nerd. Like Mark Hamill loves this shit because he has learnt the name of this alien race. Like they don't need to know this on screen. They're never mentioned on anything. So
even
he
to
doesn't
the point
need to know. Like George doesn't know. George is just calling them pig guards, whatever. Like that's like laser sword sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like Mark knows this because Mark is so invested in it and is such a Star Wars nerd already at this point, and I love it.
Right. And then later he was forced to say pig guards because the audience for this documentary doesn't care.
Yeah, you know, these guards, those ones that you recognize. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a big deal for me because, I love music. I love John Williams.
That's music corner.
We get a longer version of the second Max Rebo Band song. My favorite too. Not available anywhere.
Is it not?
It's not available anywhere. It's the instrumental that you hear while they're on the skiff.
Yeah.
I want to say it was lost.
Interesting. I was about to say like they've been doing the nice vinyl re-releases for the 40th anniversaries the last few years.
It's never on it.
And obviously we'll get one in 2 years' time for Return of the Jedi. I was gonna say, do you think it might be something that pops up? But apparently, no, not by the sounds of it. Unless
I hope
remaster it or rediscover it or something.
Yeah, I hope they find it. But in this documentary, they play a ton of it.
Yeah, way more than we get in the movie.
Yeah, and so it was really awesome to be able to hear it. It's one of those things where, like, it's always made the Jedi soundtrack incomplete, and it makes me so sad. And so watching this documentary, I love when they're doing the Creature Shop and they're doing the long version.
Yeah.
It's such a good tune. I definitely like it more than Lopty Neck.
Lopty Neck's not good, but Jedi Rocks is even worse. So it's just I don't know which I prefer. This is the first time I heard Lopty Neck in the context of the movie in so long.
Right.
Like I could hum it, I knew it, but because I just grew up watching it over and over. But I don't think I've seen an unspecialized edition for, it's going to be 10, 15 years at least. Over in the UK, there was a DVD set released around, I want to say 2005. It was probably around the time of Revenge of the Sith. That were not the special editions. It was the original versions, and they were really nice. I bought all of them, but I think I only watched through them all once because I'm like, I'll get the Blu-rays and everything after that.
But yeah,
I got it's the first time I've seen Lopty Mech for a while.
Yeah, I got that set and ripped them, so I can watch those anytime. And I want to say the original Star Wars doesn't even say Episode 4.
Oh, they've gone back to 77.
Yeah, it was just the crawl, and I love in this documentary that that Lucas refers to that movie as Star Wars.
Yeah,
I mean,
even in the title, it's from Star Wars to Jedi. It's not from A New Hope to Jedi. Like,
there's still something about A New Hope. I just don't like that title. I don't like saying it out loud.
I like it. I don't have a problem with it. It's if you're gonna break them into chapters, then cool, great. I'm glad that it's got one, but I'll always still just refer to it as Star Wars.
Yeah.
But
I think again, even the older version, this version, it just says, hold on, Star Wars Empire, Return of the Jedi.
That's what I grew up having as well. Sort of was that sort of titling. Like it was always like, oh, A New Hope is there, but again, that came around with the prequels, with Episode 1 being like. It was Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, not Phantom Menace Episode 1, which I like that they went back to for the sequels. It's Force Awakens, and then in the episode title is only in the crawl.
Right. It's funny because I'm not consistent when it comes to how I name these things. It's always Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi.
Yep.
And then it's always Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 3.
Yep.
That's how I refer to those. So I don't use the titles. And then I use
Force Awakens,
Last Jedi, and then Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, which I always just refer to as Truss. Which, like, I don't know. I think it's just where it's long.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, calling them Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3 makes sense because that is how they were marketed. Like, even when they had titles.
Yeah, I could call Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back Empire, but I can't say call Awakens or Force or Last or Jedi or
TFA.
Rise, maybe Rise, but not really.
Nah. If I was going to shorten Force Awakens, it would just be TFA.
Yeah, I usually just call them by their full names.
Yeah.
77. Yeah,
it's funny how that has played out. I think for everyone, they've all three trilogies have a different naming convention.
Right. Sometimes I'll say Attack of the Clones.
That's just because you love Attack of the Clones and talk about it a lot.
I do. I do, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, and I'm not gonna try to backpedal. I'm not gonna try to convince anybody otherwise. But
own it.
I love it.
What you love, people.
Dude, we'll get into it when we get into it, but. Growing up in the dark times and hearing about the Clone Wars and knowing that the Jedi Knights were, the guardians of peace and justice to the galaxy, all that stuff. When you see when Mace Windu shows up in the arena, it gives me goosebumps almost every time. And all those lightsabers light up. Really it's like, wow, this is what I wanted Star Wars to be. Like, this is what Phantom Menace had some lightsabers. And a bunch of Jedi, but I wanted to see the Jedi Knights, and Attack of the Clones gave me that. I
want to save our Clone Wars talk for when we do Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
Right. I have so many. I think I picked that number 2 for a draft. Did I pick Attack of the Clones as number 2?
Yeah, I believe
it was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty soon.
It went high.
We get almost the full Jabba the Hutt scene unaltered.
Yes, the from Star Wars, the original, the Docking Bay 94 scene.
Right.
So I have thoughts about this scene, and I have thoughts about the special edition version of it. I have thoughts about this original version of it. Like, it's so unnecessary.
Right.
Because
it's redundant.
All of the information that is in that scene is exactly the same as we got from Greedo, and I feel like had this scene been included in Star Wars, Greedo's scene would have been different.
Or it would have been out.
Or it would have been out. Yeah, or yeah, maybe. Some reason, or like him shooting Greedo would have just been something that he did off camera, sort of thing. Because it's referred to by Jabba.
Right.
He sort of says, "Why did you have to blast poor Greedo?" And I feel like it's okay. So that has happened, but none of the rest of the information with like the dumping the cargo or any of that. It's like, come on. And Han even like reiterates the same line that he says to Greedo. It's like, you don't need this. You don't need one or the other.
I have a theory.
Go for it.
So I think that Lucas wanted to do the Jabba the Hutt scene.
I do.
Right. But
Greedo's
he did
there is the same suit, the same Gamorrean, like not Gamorrean. Oh my god, why am I Rodian? God, yeah. I had Trandoshan in my head.
But he had clearly wanted to do some sort of stop motion creature over this. Like he had plans. If that doesn't work, let's shoot this scene with this alien, and we could subtitle it to say whatever we want. So that way, you can still take the Greedo scene out.
Yeah.
If the Jabba scene's in there.
Yeah.
The frying poor Greedo line wouldn't make sense. But I feel like the fact that
it's well built.
Greedo is subtitled, it left George Lucas options. So the options were to.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I would love to see, because they show the image of a man with the drawing over him of what the stop motion creature is going to look like. I'd love to see somebody.
Jabba was super different. Yeah.
I would love to see somebody actually create that puppet and do that scene, like with stop motion.
And like with technology that we've got now, you could easily go in and sort of superimpose it way better than they did in 96, 97 sort of thing.
Right.
Like,
has anybody done that?
I
don't think no.
No.
I would, because the design is there. You can see the design. Create that creature.
I'm guessing that this documentary is probably the only place that you can see that design. Like,
yeah. Oh my god.
They don't talk about it all that much.
It might be the design might be in the art of Return of the Jedi, but it's literally. Maybe, I don't know why it would be in there though. Just
well,
under basic Jabba designs.
Art of Star Wars, maybe.
Right. But yeah, I want to see that happen. Someone out there with stop motion skills actually create the scene as it should have in like 1977, if he was able to pull it off.
Don't be swayed by the thought and the look of Jabba that we know, like the big son. Like, go with this design.
I'm surprised that they didn't do something along the lines of Sweetums from the Muppet Show. Like, that seems like it would be the easiest thing.
Yeah.
But this is also pre-Muppet Show, and then, I mean, the budget on Star Wars.
And the
Cantina.
The budget and the time that he had to do anything was so limited. Right. It was just like he was just doing what he could. I mean, he always said that about Star Wars, and he reiterates it here. He's like, he was never happy with that movie. Of all three, that was the one that he was like, it's such an unfinished project for him.
Right.
And he says that about the Cantina. We all love the Cantina.
But George didn't.
But George hated it because he was like, it's such an unfinished vision. Like, and that's why there is a scene like that, like recurring so much, like Jabba's palace, and then all throughout the prequels, there's always that scene. Like I think of like the bar in Attack of the Clones as him getting to do another crack at the Cantina, but like a bit more fleshed out than he would like.
Yeah. Not as many creatures.
There's no creatures. No.
The thing that's
creatures in that one.
And they took Anthony Daniels and Ahmed Best out of the costumes to just be people. The special edition didn't really add much to the Cantina.
No, they took just someone out, didn't they? They took Wolfman.
They took out Wolfman, Lax Sivrak.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I mean, get into this in special edition, but it's funny as he added two creatures, one with horns or tusks, and another one smoking a pipe. both the same puppet.
Oh, was it?
So the tusks are the face of one thing, and they swiveled the head around and the back of the other one. If I remember correctly, that's how they did it.
That's awesome.
But I mean, like, yeah, I just like when it comes to special editions, why add the big scene? Why not fill the cantina with CG dudes?
Yeah.
Because he did the outside. Obviously, he wanted Mos Eisley to be more popular,
more alive. Yeah.
But that also should be in Star Wars discussion.
I feel like trying to keep it to this documentary, that because of this documentary, because that scene had been out there for 16 years at that point, 17 years by the time the special editions came out, people knew of that scene. I knew of that scene. I think I'd seen some screenshots of it. I might have seen a clip of it with the dude in the fursuit. Looks like he's come straight off of Game of Thrones or something.
My cosplay.
Your cosplay for Celebration next year. And God, you're gonna get hot in that.
I don't know if I'm gonna do it.
I think because of that, it's the reason that he felt the need to put that scene in.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about all the other big changes through the special editions, and that's the biggest one. Like, that's the inclusion of a full scene that didn't exist.
Right.
Jedi had probably the second most with some of the changes. I mean,
Jedi
Empire
rocks.
was barely touched. Yeah, Empire was barely touched. Like, I like the changes in Empire.
Right.
Like, they're making Bespin more open with the windows. I love that.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
Yep.
The inclusion, I think the only thing I don't like in Empire is the inclusion of showing Darth Vader docking in his shuttle.
Oh, it's because it's on the Death Star too.
And
because it's the same shot.
Yeah, and then it like chops up the music.
Yeah.
The music loses the flow.
Him leaving Bespin with the prepare my shuttle, like, that's fine, whatever. But the shot of him coming into the hangar is the same shot. Like, you can even see they didn't even take out Moff Jerjerrod. Like, if you freeze frame it, he's there. He's there waiting for him. It's like, you're not on the executor. Like, you're on the Death Star now. Like, what are you doing?
I had no idea that was the case.
Oh, it's bad. It bugs me every time.
Are you an Empire guy or a Rebels guy? Like I know a lot of
Rebel.
Like. Okay. Because for me, like, I always grew like driving around. People have Star Wars stickers, and you can just tell the people that have the Imperial stuff all over the place. And I'm like, I never identified it with that. That's one of the things that I liked about Gareth Edwards in his documentary for Rogue One, which we'll get to eventually, is that he was always a fan of the Rebels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's my dude.
That's my boy.
Yeah, I always like the good guys.
Absolutely.
So speaking of good guys,
actually, I'm like that with pro wrestling. Like, I'll root for the good guys because that's the story that they're trying to tell. Like, I appreciate a good bad guy. I love Piet and I do really like Moff Jerjerrod. Like, they're my two favorite Imperial officers. But like, no, like, Wedge is my boy. Like, I love Music Rebels.
Yeah, and I'm not even a fan of like bounty hunters. I was never really a big Boba Fett fan, but
in the comics
Bosk.
at the moment they've Bosk
cool. Just looks so rad.
The stuff that I think I'm more of a fan of Bosk now because of all the rest of the Trandoshan stuff that's been done in like the animation and stuff. But in the comics at the moment they're doing this War of the Bounty Hunters, and it's about like Boba Fett transporting Han to Jabba. And I read the primer issue that sort of sets up the story, and I'm like, I don't care. He does. He gets him there. I don't need to read this crossover with other books that I'm not reading.
Right. I've never really come up with a Star Wars story before, like a sort of ancillary story. Like, it's never my thing. But this past weekend, I thought of something, and now I want to make a Star Wars story, and I don't think it'll be Do you
want to give it away on air?
Yeah, sure. We were driving from from Bakersfield to back to Anaheim. Bakersfield's kind of just north of LA. It's about a 2-hour drive. As we're coming back, there's a bunch of like grape farms and different fruit farms, and there was a plane crop dusting.
Cool.
And I'm like, crop dusting exists in Star Wars.
It does.
And I would like to see a story about a crop duster.
That's cool.
Who's just a down on his luck crop duster, works in a farm in the middle of nowhere.
So like Randy Quaid
outside...
in Independence Day.
Yeah, that was. I said that kind of happened in Independence Day, but yeah, he lives out in outside a small town, and a shuttle with Imperials come to sort of take over this town, and the crop duster gets in his T-16.
So are we on Tatooine?
Flies over? No, because I don't think
it's overdone.
I don't think you would crop the moisture underground.
Han is saying ain't like dusting
Right.
crops, boy.
What's
Luke
the...
just because he's a farm boy, like not because
What
he
is,
actually dusts crops.
Yeah. Yes, it's like a derogatory thing.
It's like
what's like Lamu? Lamu, is that where Galen Erso we first meet him?
Oh, yeah.
In Rogue One.
Galen.
Something like that. But like
Iceland.
Like yeah. And then so the crop duster gets in his shuttle, blankets the town in dust, and the townsfolk are ready for it. The stormtroopers are not, and they're able to rise up against the Imperials. Like a short story.
That's
like
a really cool short story idea. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with Jedis or Skywalkers. Nope. The Empire is there, but yeah. So that's that. Someone go make that too, and then put a stop motion Jabba in it.
that could be an episode of of any of the animated shows. Like,
right.
You could just do like a one-off episode. They would occasionally do that with Clone Wars. Like, I'd love to see that.
But I just watch this crop duster. I'm like, oh man, like Star Wars, because my mind's always on Star Wars.
Always. Everything related to Star Wars.
There is a scene in this documentary where Mark Hamill is getting his outfit tailored for Return of the Jedi.
George is sat there watching, judging.
Yes. Mark's standing there with his arms folded, doing different heroic poses in the black top to bottom suit. My favorite Luke Skywalker suit. That's my dude. Never cared for the beige one, but this black suit. So Mark's like looking at it. He's like, yeah, I look good in black. Yeah. And George Lucas says, it's similar to your episode 4. It's similar to your Star Wars one.
The first one.
Or he said the first movie.
Yeah, he just says the first. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, a little bit. And he says that it's more Jedi-like.
Yep.
Okay.
Because that's what he thought Jedi would dress like, is in like basically like combat fatigues, but not in the jumpsuit that he was wearing in Empire.
Yeah.
But like in practical, simplistic, clean. But you know, it's a black suit. It goes in any situation. You know, you can get away with it.
And it kind of like a priest, like a Catholic priest would wear all black.
Yeah.
And he's got that collar too on that outfit.
And
so
then as soon as the flap comes down as well, like that's like basically like an enlarged bit of collar, isn't it? So
right. And so like it was interesting seeing that Lucas's original idea for Jedi were more like this, like the dark outfits and stuff.
Not just wearing Tatooine robes.
Right. And it made me like, okay, when I saw the prequels, I'm like, why are they wearing the robes? I know just because Obi-Wan wore that robe on Tatooine, why is he wearing? I was hoping like once they discarded the robes that they would have something more slick like that underneath.
Cool. Or that like Qui-Gon changed into that on Tatooine would make sense. He's trying to blend in.
Yeah. And I feel like Last Jedi sort of came up with a concept where Luke has the Jedi robes, but uses that for certain situations.
The novelization delves into that a lot. The reason that we saw him in the robes at the end of Force Awakens and then a couple of times throughout Last Jedi is because that is the formal attire. Like that is like basically like ceremonial almost robes. And so he would put that on in the novelization. It happens. He talks about it. He would put that on as he was going to go burn the tree down. And he'd never been able to actually go through with it.
Right. I think that this could be explained in stories, but with the prequels, maybe the Jedi are so arrogant that they always feel the need to dress up in their
Pompous. Yeah.
robes.
That plays into the arrogance of the Jedi in that time.
Yeah.
Again, you're gonna be the music guy. I'm gonna be the voice of like the books and stuff because I read all that stuff. The High Republic, the series that are like going on at the moment. It's a couple of 100 years before Phantom Menace, and the Jedi in that, obviously, they're kind of at their prime, their heyday, and they wear sort of somewhere in between. It's almost like Luke when he's on his own, not in his formal thing. So it's like there's some robe like elements to it, but it's not all grand stuff unless they are at a big presentation. So at the end of the first book, there is a big ceremony, and they specifically sort of say they're formal robes.
Good. That makes me happy.
Yeah. And I feel like it's because the writers who are working on those books have the same sort of opinion as us. It's like they can have those robes, like, you know, when they need to dress up. It's almost like cardinals putting on their robes over like their normal priesty stuff.
Right.
I'm clearly not religious. But yeah, they've got them and they put them on, and it's military putting on their sort of dress uniform as opposed to their practical everyday uniform.
Right. And then imagine the military becoming so into themselves that they always wore that because they never really have a conflict that's worth getting dirty for.
A long time they didn't. Yeah.
So, okay, cool. That works. But that's the
headcanon that I go with. And now that you've said that about the prequels, I like that a lot.
Yeah, and then with George saying that this is more Jedi-like, I'm like, dude, come on. Like, if every Jedi was dressed like this or similar to this, I think it would be rad.
They look badass. Like, you can have different colors and stuff like that, or like variations, but like a lot more like that would be badass.
Yeah, because like you learn like that what Qui-Gon believes in as far as like the living force, and he believes that midichlorians are what creates the force. Like he approaches it more from a science point of view, and then other people like Obi-Wan might do a more mystical point of view of the force. Like they would wear something that would reflect their sort of sect of Jedi. So Qui-Gon being the living force in Earth, he might wear like something like the tan fatigues, and Obi-Wan, who believes in like mystical, would be more
the cosmic force.
Would be like a more I don't know, like a white, something more mystical.
I'm not a fan of midichlorians. I don't know who is. I like that George has sort of come out and said that's just something that he believes. Like that's not all Jedi, and I feel like having him confirm that a few of us had all like been saying for a few years up to that point was great. It was really handy, but just for the people that nitpick. But I like the idea that there are different sects. There are different types of Jedi who all have different opinions, and that, you know, it's like going to a monastery. Like going to the Jedi Temple is like hanging out at a monastery where they're all discussing this stuff all the time. They can disagree. They don't need to all agree on everything all the time.
Because there's a bunch of people who believe in the Force and believe how the Force works. Then there's the Jedi, and the Jedi is just an organization that are
devoted themselves to it.
Yeah. To protecting the galaxy. They're like a police force / they're like knights.
Yeah, knights they are.
But you can get knights from, you know, Mongolian knights and all these different knights from England, and like soldiers from the United States. Like it's like all these different people can fall under this blanket thing of the Jedi. And so they're all going to have different views. The galaxy's huge. They come from all over the place.
And there's, they reckon, what was it, about 10,000, I think, at the height of the Clone Wars and stuff. So, at the start of the Clone Wars, there was about 10,000 Jedi. So, 10,000 people aren't all going to think the same thing, even in the same organization.
Yeah. Right. Special effects without a story is a pretty boring thing.
I love that line. It's such a great line. And it's like, oh, George, you should have had that pinned up on your wall. for the next 20 years because it's almost like you forgot that because you got so wrapped up in what you could do, you stopped to wonder if you should.
Yeah, in this movie, in this documentary, he talks about pushing the technology forward.
Yeah.
And he also mentions, Mark Hamill in the narration mentions that George thought that directing was one too many things to tackle while overseeing these projects.
Back. Yeah.
So that's why Richard Marquand came in and Irvin Kershner. But when the prequels came, he probably should have. He was so focused on the visuals. But I still like the prequels. I'm not gonna crap on them.
I don't have as big of a problem with the prequels as a lot of people do.
The ending of this documentary, we get George Lucas talking about Star Wars, the universe he created, how much he loves the universe.
Their family to him.
Their family. And he says he'll have a desire to return to this family. And it took, 17 years.
From that point, it would have been... I mean, he started working on the prequels. 16 years? Yeah, Depending on the interview, it's like he started deciding that he was definitely going to do it in 95. They knew that they weren't going to have anything in 96, so that's why they did Shadows of the Empire. 97 was the special editions, and that was all build up. Because they started shooting episode 1 in 97, I think, didn't they?
Yes.
I believe they did, yeah.
Oh, I was going to tell you about the Jedi thing. You said nobody liked midichlorians.
Okay.
There was a 3-year span where I was all about midichlorians.
That's very specific.
It is. From 1999 to 2002, I kept telling friends, no, midichlorians are awesome because if the Jedis have a certain kind of cellular structure and we're going to be going into the Clone Wars, the Jedi are going to be cloned into bad Jedi, and so you're going to have bad Jedi versus regular Jedi, and that's the Clone Wars.
I mean, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but you definitely had read the Zan trilogy, The Heir to the Empire, the Sparty cylinders,
Luke. So it was one of those things where for like 3 years I'm like, no, you guys listen. George Lucas knows what he's doing. He's setting up the Clone Wars. Like, why else would he bring up Jedi cells?
And literally like blood stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense.
I was so happy.
It would make sense if it was something that he had in mind. Again, like the prequels, we know that adapted and changed because some big stuff happened between 99 and 2002 that definitely influenced how those movies played out.
Right.
And stories are always evolving. There's never a big set plan. There's been a lot of discussion online about the planning of the sequel trilogy this last couple of weeks, and I'm just like, you can have an idea, but stuff has to be able to evolve on the fly.
Right. I've said this on Solo, but I like when Star Wars productions have to stay on their toes. You saw it with the original Star Wars. Lucas was doing everything, scrambling every single day to get it done.
So much of that movie was well, shit, we can't do this, so let's do this.
Yeah. And then with the sequel trilogy, episode 7 and 8 feel glossy. They feel very precise. I have issues with The Last Jedi. This documentary, Lucas talks about kids' perceptions of editing and how he can push editing faster and quicker because people are starting to perceive the images quicker, and they don't have to be slowed down.
Yeah, you can spend all the money in the cantina, but like cut around because it's world building. He says that. Yeah. When they built
the sales barge. He said one of the problems is when they do the special effects or when they do these things, the filmmakers tend to want to show this stuff off, the work that they did.
So proud of it. You built it for a year. You may as well show it.
And it messes with the pacing of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I have an issue with Last Jedi is that it
lingers.
It had an easy production. It sounded like they didn't have any issues with the production, and they just kind of let it play out. But but Rise of Skywalker, which had all kinds of issues, they changed directors, scripts, squirreling around with stuff. That movie flies, and I love that it flies. So I'm with Lucas. Like, bring up the pace.
Faster, more intense. It's right there.
Yeah, bring
It's
up the pace. Rogue One has some issues in the middle for me, little pacing issues, but
The
for the most part,
yeah.
But for the most part, it just flies. Like Star Wars needs to ramp up the speed, and let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure kids nowadays can perceive images even way more quicker.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been joking about it, you know, time immemorial, that like kids these days, and it's always kids these days, it doesn't matter what the days are, but kids these days don't have the attention span that we did, and so on and so forth. Like I can't deal with TikTok, but like kids, like yeah, I mean, of course, and it was the same for me. It was people said the same about my generation, about your generation, about anyone. Like it's always the same. It's the same old story. But yeah, no, I thought, just going back to the Lucas quote about special effects and lingering when you don't need to, and all of that, it's just like hearing him talk in '83, where it's like I think he'd found his groove, where he's like, I can build these worlds, I can create all of this, I don't need to direct it myself.
Right.
He had a big hand in Jedi. He was there on set all the time.
They keep showing him behind the camera, like looking through the lens.
I mean, there's more of Lucas than there is of Marquand.
Right.
And I mean, there's a litany of reasons for that. Like even like down to the unions and stuff like that, I believe. But it's like, no, he found his groove and it worked. So I agree with you. It's like, you could see that he had the passion for it in '83, way more so than I think, later, at any point later. Because maybe in the build-up to episode 1, we'll talk about that documentary, the making of episode 1, because that's a great documentary. Right. But I feel like after that was when all of the backlash was coming in at him. And I mean, I remember seeing it, I don't know the exact quote, but I remember seeing it at one point, he was like, I did what they wanted me to do. I made more Star Wars and they hated me for it.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because it's like, you see him talk about his love for it and its family and it's like going home for him at this point. And then you see him 30 years later and it's like he's had it beaten out of him, but it's still there. Like, I genuinely believe he still has a love for that world, those characters. I'll
go ask him about my crop dusting story if he wants to direct a short.
I mean, it sounds like it'd be something right up his alley.
Right. Speed. It has speed in it.
Exactly.
He loves his speed.
imagine that shot of like a T-16 flying over a land speeder of some sort, going fast and like, I don't know, making a tight corner. Like he'd be all about that.
Right.
Like he talks about it in this, where like the speed and like his love of racing cars and stuff like that was what drew him to the speeder bike chase.
Right.
So again, like this documentary focuses so much on Return of the Jedi that he talks about the speeder bike chase in parallel to the trench run, and he's like, it's the trench run but better because there's obstacles and he could do stuff. He could make it more visually interesting.
Yeah, he was saying like that the Death Star is abstract, it's in space, whereas every person on Earth
has walked through the
has seen a tree.
Yeah.
So it makes it more real. I love that. I love that speeder bike chase. Those the miniature, the puppets, the Leia puppet and the biker scout puppet. Dude, it looks so good.
It still to this day looks so good. Yeah. And it's one of those things that like over the years they could have easily gone in and tinkered and like digitally put in her face, but you don't need to. You can leave that one alone and it's still great.
Those quick cuts too, they help.
Quick cuts and just seeing the camera work like behind the scenes as they're like doing those quick pull outs and then so that you can get them whipping around and taking those corners and stuff like that. It's great. Love all of that. Seeing the big massive rig that they had over the Death Star 2 was fascinating. The camera rig that they had for the flyovers of that like miniature. Because you look at that and you think about the size that you could do it now. Like the camera
Right.
clarity and everything that you could have.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Right.
Love it. It's a great documentary. Recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it before. Even if you think, like me, that you've seen every documentary and you know everything, you might not learn loads of brand new information, but it's still worth a watch.
It's mostly fun just to see the behind the scenes working of the creature shop and the shooting of the film, because there's no actor interviews. The only interview is George.
Yeah.
And then it's just
Mark
footage.
gets to talk about like his perception on story. Like they show
Right.
a lot of the Luke and Vader fight from Return of the Jedi and how it caps the story and it parallels the fight in Empire and everything like that. But the way that it cuts between narration and just letting the scene play out is really good. You wouldn't get that, I don't think, in many documentaries now.
Right. Maybe my favorite documentary of all time.
Wow. It's big.
Yeah. I love Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Cool.
All right.
I think that'll wrap it up for that one.
Cool. You want to talk about next episode? It's you're up.
I am up.
I'm interested to see what you say.
Let's go. I've got the list in front of me now. We've just done a documentary, so let's not do a documentary.
The writer of this documentary, I looked him up. His whole career was like doing these sort of like movie documentaries. He did like a Ron Howard director, Clint Eastwood, Scorsese. Cool. He did a bunch, but he also did a special effects documentary for Empire Strikes Back, and he also wrote The Making of Star Wars starring C-3PO and R2-D2, which
that's great.
We'll definitely get to that eventually. Yeah. I love that one. So that's kind of cool.
Cool. Let's change the tone a little bit.
All right.
Let's change eras as we've been doing. I like that we've been jumping around the eras. Let's change the tone completely. And let's talk some comedy. Let's talk about Star Wars on SNL.
All right. Sounds great.
Are we just going to do a broad overview of Star Wars on SNL throughout the years?
We can do.
Or should we dive into like Undercover Boss? Or what do we want to do with it? There's a ton we could talk about. Just some highlights. So if people aren't familiar, I would say Bill Murray, the lounge singer. Of course.
Undercover Boss. I always like the casting, the prequel casting with different actors.
Oh, I don't think I've seen it.
It has like what is it like? I think Kevin Spacey was the host, but he does like a Jack Lemmon as C-3PO or a Walter Matthau as Han Solo. So it's all lines from Star Wars, but it's all impressions.
There's a few classics because we don't get SNL over here. There's a few classics that I've seen. Obviously, Bill Murray and Undercover Boss. I've seen a bunch, but like there's gonna be loads that I haven't seen. Yeah. So we'll put them all up on anything that's on YouTube that we can find. We'll put them on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/live action SW. No,
not yet.
Not yet. It's not. So
not
go
yet.
and subscribe, everybody. Like,
so go if you go to liveactionstarwars.com.
There it is.
We'll forward you to the YouTube page. It's down here. I can put the the actual YouTube URL, have it go all the way across the whole screen with all the random symbols and numbers and letters. I mean, if you're watching this, chances are you're subscribed. If you're listening to this on your podcatcher, go subscribe, because once we get the 100. Then someone could be listening to this in 4 years or watching this in 4 years. So we're going to do everything to get youtube.com/liveactionsw.
And it's worth doing, even if you are just an audio listener, to go and subscribe, because Ralph so far has put out one. I've got something lined up that I'm going to do probably in a couple of weeks' time. But we've got other supplemental little mini episodes, talking about like real specific things or things that don't make it into the main show. But they're only on YouTube, so you've got to catch them there. And it's also a great place to find out like what we're going to talk about. So there was a link to this documentary on there, and you could basically, anything that we're going to talk about, as long as it's on YouTube, which 90% of it is going to be at least,
right?
It'll be on there, so you can go and find it there, even if you're just going to then listen to it on your commute.
Right. Sounds.
But subscribe.
Good.
Always subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. yeah, we can, yeah, yeah. We want the subscriptions. Positive. I mean, this is episode 3, and so far we've had some pretty positive feedback, nice comments.
Seems to be, yeah.
Like anytime someone says a comment, I'm like, this is great.
It's one of those things. I think we're doing this because we love. We're doing this because we love it, first and foremost. And we're like, we love chatting Star Wars, and people are enjoying it as well. That just makes it even sweeter. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, if you've got any feedback, please do send it to us. We would love to involve it.
Cool.
Anything that you want us to bring up, please.
And then all of our socials are at Live Action SW, and follow us there. Yeah. And join in the conversation. So yeah, until next time, may the Force be with you.
Punch it.
Hey, did everybody go to lunch? What's going on here? Hey. Hello in TV land.
They were a bit